Many people, when they watch the news, they get scared. You know what I see when I watch the news? I see someone make millions, sometimes billions of dollars. Since 2001, the United States has spent more than $8 trillion on wars. Trillions of dollars, borrowed, printed, and burned. We were told these wars were about freedom, security, protecting democracy. But behind the curtain, something far darker was happening. War itself became a business that turned blood into profit and death into dividends. Take, for example, U.S. military aid. Every shipment of food, every troop deployment, every piece of equipment represents a contract, an opportunity for profit. When the U.S. sends $64 million in food aid to Gaza, someone earns millions simply by fulfilling that contract. Someone has to supply, feed, aid, and manage everything. And that someone often don't always go to massive corporations. Many times, they often go to small, ambitious businesses willing to navigate the bureaucracy and take the risk. David Packouz, whose story inspired the movie War Dogs, was a 20-something with no background in military contracting. Yet through determination and a willingness to take risks, he secured a $300 million contract. Ordinary people, using creativity and effort, can sometimes make fortunes the way giant corporations. The U.S. federal government is, in many ways, the largest customer in the world. Its annual budget exceeds $6 trillion, with nearly $800 billion allocated to defense alone. And it doesn't produce its own goods. It relies on private businesses to provide everything, from laundry and landscaping services to software, real estate, and even security. Essentially, if it's a service or a product, the government is likely buying it, and that means opportunity. Profit margins may seem modest, typically between 5% and 20%, but they quickly add up when the contracts reach millions. A $300 million contract at just 5% profit yields $15 million, life-changing money for most small business owners. And while the first contract is often the hardest to land, smaller contracts under $250,000 are accessible to new businesses. Once you prove yourself, doors open for much larger deals. Today, just 5 corporations dominate the U.S. defense industry: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. Together, they form a trillion-dollar empire, a network that stretches across the globe. Their business model is simple, almost disturbingly so. The more wars America fights, the more weapons America buys. Take, for example, Lockheed Martin, the world's largest weapons manufacturer, saw its stock price rise by over 1,000% in the 2 decades after 9/11. Every new contract, whether for fighter jets, drones, or missile defense systems, meant billions flowing into the company's accounts. Boeing, better known for commercial airplanes, became a military giant, producing helicopters, bombs, and surveillance systems. Billions in wartime contracts turned defense into one of its most lucrative divisions. Raytheon specialized in missiles, and war made business boom. From Tomahawk cruise missiles to Patriot air defense systems, Raytheon's weapons became a permanent feature of America's foreign wars. Every missile launched meant another purchase order waiting to be filled. Northrop Grumman built some of the most advanced technology for America's wars: stealth bombers, surveillance drones, cyber systems. While soldiers fought on the ground, Northrop cashed in on the new era of high-tech warfare. And General Dynamics supplied everything from armored vehicles to nuclear submarines. For them, every battlefield was a business opportunity. Every conflict a chance to secure another multi-billion-dollar contract. The result? In the 20 years after 9/11, America spent over $8 trillion on its wars. And these 5 corporations were among the biggest beneficiaries. Together, they turned the so-called war on terror into a cycle of endless revenue. So how does someone actually get a government contract? The process is not as secretive as you might think. In fact, the U.S. government makes these opportunities public. Every day, thousands of contracts are posted on platforms like sam.gov. And these aren't just for billion-dollar weapons systems. There's a contract for almost everything. Trimming trees in California, delivering TVs and microwaves to a Navy base in Romania, even leasing apartments to the Army Corps of Engineers in Seattle. The idea is simple. The government needs a service or a product, and contractors, whether small businesses or large corporations, step up to provide it. But it's not as easy as raising your hand. Each contract requires research, planning, and a smart bid. Here's how it works. You study the contract requirements. You calculate the costs of labor, materials, and transportation. You figure out what price makes sense, high enough to profit, but low enough to beat your competitors. The tricky part, unlike an auction, you don't know what other companies are bidding. That's why preparation and knowing your industry is critical. And in times of crisis, the stakes and profits get even bigger. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the government suddenly needed masks, gloves, face shields, and ventilators. They needed them fast. Traditional suppliers couldn't keep up. That opened the door for new players. One small startup in Texas, just 30 employees, won contracts to supply face shields. They had no history in government contracting. Yet because they delivered quickly, they made nearly $20 million overnight. The lesson is clear. When the government needs something urgently, it will pay for anyone who can solve the problem on time. It's just supply and demand on the largest scale imaginable. The U.S. government is the world's biggest customer, and it never stops buying. For some, this system is a lifeline. For others, it's a gold mine. And for the biggest corporations, it's an empire.